In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. So many incredible friends and family here tonight. It's such a beautiful thing. Some people say, how do you speak before so many people all the time? When there's love in the room, it's really easy, if you want to know the truth. It really is. You ought to try it sometime. Together we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in grave trouble. This is not a task for a politician or a conventional candidate. This is a task for a great movement that embodies the courage, confidence, and the spirit of the American people. This is a movement. This is not for any one individual. This is a job for tens of millions of proud people working together from all across the land and from all walks of life, young and old, black and white, Hispanic and Asian, many of whom we have brought together for the very, very first time. If you look at the numbers, if you look at what's happened with Hispanic, with African American, with Asian, and just look at what's happening. This is a party that has become much bigger, much stronger, much more powerful, can do much more good for our country. In New Jersey, I love New Jersey, but 6% approval rating in New Jersey. What's the purpose? And he's polling at 0. And others are, I call him Ada Hutchinson. I don't call him Asa. I call him Ada Hutchinson. I gave him a little name for some reason, for certain reasons. But this guy, nobody knows who the hell he is. Never good. And some, it's fine, but I don't understand what they're doing. Now, maybe there's something wrong, but when you're at 1% or less, 1%, it says 1% with an arrow pointing left. There's one guy who's at 0 with an arrow pointing left. That means he's at less than 0. So it is what it is. I really go after the one who's second, and I think the one who's second is going down so much and so rapidly that I don't think he's going to be second that much longer. I think he's going to be third or fourth. He had a very bad day today. He got very angry at the press. You're not allowed to get angry at the press.
Let me.
At the fake news, he got angry.
So you probably became in history the most investigated president of all time.
Times 10.
Okay. So.
But if my poll numbers went down, it would all end. Every time my poll goes up, I say, oh, this is a problem. But we had a poll today that showed I was 44 points above number 2 and beating Biden by 11 points. Beating Biden by 11 points and beating Biden by 15 and 16 points in some of them. And he's not doing well against Biden.
Let me ask you, because you are...
Because we can't take a chance of this election.
I think a lot of people agree with that. I don't think things have been as bad, turned so badly so quickly. The third issue is there's a special counsel that's appointed, and news broke yesterday that there might be a tape recording that, quote, where you acknowledge that you understood that these were classified documents. First of all, do you know who this call may be with? Do you know anything about it?
No, I don't know anything about it. All I know is this. Everything I did was right. We have the Presidential Records Act, which I abided by 100%. Biden has 1,850 boxes with a lot of classified stuff that he's not supposed to have. In his case, I have the right to declassify as president. He's got 1,850 boxes that he doesn't want anyone to see. He had 7 or 8 boxes in Chinatown in Washington, D.C., where nobody even speaks English in Chinatown. Chinatown is it's in favor of China. And he has boxes in Chinatown. They took those boxes and they sent them to Boston to his lawyer so his lawyer could look through them and probably do things that you're not supposed to do. No, this is about election interference. And in fact, I have to tell you, Dershowitz and a couple of very good guys wrote an article today. The Tobacco King, you know who the Tobacco King, he did a great job on the tobacco companies. They wrote an article today that this is a disgrace that they're even looking at this stuff. There was nothing done wrong, nothing whatsoever. Now look at the boxes with Biden, where they're in his garage, they're all over the floor. They're sitting under his Corvette with the grease and everything else, on a garage door that you could cut with a scissor, and no Secret Service. I have Secret Service all over the place. Mar-a-Lago is a fort. It's literally, she built that as the Southern White House. But when you look at it, and it's another, it's a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time. It's a hoax. And it has to do more than anything else with trying to interfere with the election. And let me tell you, DOJ actually you talk about Bragg, the DA of New York. I never thought I'd be dealing with a guy like this. You talk about Bragg. The DOJ in Washington put his top guy into the DA's office, which is local, which is city, state. But they put the top guy in the Justice Department into that office to make sure Trump gets in trouble. Can you believe it? It's never, ever happened before. And then Hillary Clinton's lawyer from, I guess it's Paul Weiss, left Paul Weiss to work in the prosecutor's office because he hates Trump and he wants to get Trump. And then nobody wanted to do anything because they say, Trump didn't do anything wrong, including Bragg originally said Trump didn't do anything wrong. And then he prosecutes for what he said was not wrong. But they took this guy and they put him in there, and he left the firm and he went in. It's a big, Pomerantz, Mark Pomerantz. And he left to become a prosecutor. He was a Democrat lawyer, and now he's trying to prosecute me. And then what happened is they wouldn't do what he wanted to do because it was too bad even for them. So this guy left and he writes a book during the process. They tell me what he did is criminal. They tell me. Now let's see what happens. But he's in a lot of trouble. So here's a prosecutor left and he wrote a book during the prosecution. But I've been going through this for 7 years. Russia, all of it. The Mueller report, which was no collusion. After 2.5 years, there was no collusion with Russia. I was the worst thing. Putin would say, they say you like me. He said, you are the worst guy that we've ever had to deal with. I'm the one that stopped the pipeline, the big pipeline going up to Germany. I stopped it. When Biden came in, it's called Nord Stream 2. When Nord Stream 2, nobody ever heard of it until I came along. I said, you're allowing Russia to build a pipeline through Europe? I stopped it. It was stopped dead. And then the election came about, and Biden came in. One of the first things he did was allow Russia to complete the pipeline. I had it stopped. And then they say, I'll tell you what, they're a party of disinformation. They'll say Trump is soft on Russia. I'm the hardest on Russia that there's ever been. The sanctions we did, everything else. And I got along with Putin.
Let me follow up.
And by the way, the hardest on China by a factor. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. And as I said, no other president ever took in 10 cents. And you know what? China respected us. And President Xi respected your president. And he didn't want to have any more tariffs. And he didn't want to have any more sanctions. But he respected us. And now he doesn't respect. They don't even return phone calls.
Abortion now is back as a real campaign issue. Yeah. And then issues I didn't think when I started my radio career in 1987 I'd be talking a lot about, but education, kids, gender identity classes, CRT. I never thought we'd really have this deep debate about whether or not biological men could be playing in women's sports.
So crazy.
On all of these issues, what is the best way that you see to settle?
Well, I did something that nobody thought was possible. I got rid of Roe v. Wade. And by doing that, it put pro-lifers in a very strong negotiating position. Now they're negotiating different things. And, I happen to be of the Ronald Reagan school in terms of exemptions where you have the life of the mother, rape, and
incest, mother's life.
So you have that. And I think, for me, that's something that works very well. And for probably 80, 85%. Because don't forget, we do have to win elections. But I did something that nobody could do. And I also made them the radicals because they are willing and able to kill babies in the 9th month. They're willing to kill babies. That's radical. Pro-life isn't radical. They've made pro-life radical, the other side. Pro-life is not radical. What's radical is killing a baby in the 8th month, the 7th month, the 9th month, or even the babies after the baby's born. And, unfortunately, we have a lot of politicians, and you saw that in the midterms. I think it was a big factor, that didn't really know how to talk about what we did with Roe v. Wade and what we did on pro-life. They didn't know how to talk about it. And it energized the Democrats, and they used that. I mean, they used that as a commercial. You wouldn't believe it.
Well, what should the
But especially when you didn't have
be?
the exceptions. When you didn't have the exceptions, they went after the people like viciously. The ads, and those people did not, generally speaking, they didn't do very well in terms of election. But when you have the exceptions and you go through the whole gamut, it's something that's an incredible thing. But one thing it really did, though, Sean, is it gave people that are pro-life a great power to negotiate. We had no power to negotiate because you had Roe v. Wade sitting in there where you could do anything, where the other side could do anything. They can't do that right now. So we're in a great position to negotiate something really, really good. And most people, I think, really respect what we did. Now, I will say every once in a while I'll watch somebody say, I did more for abortion and abortion rights and pro-life. I did more than Trump. Well, only stupid people would say that because everyone said there was no way that Roe v. Wade was going to disappear. But because it was very unfair. The other thing is people wanted to bring it back to the states. I consider that less important, but nevertheless, a lot of people want to bring it back. This brings it back to the states.
More with Donald Trump, and we'll hear from our Iowa.
Do you think Biden will stay in the race?
Look, I watch him just like you do. And I think it's almost inappropriate for me to say it. But I deal with other people. I don't see how it's possible. And it's not an age thing. You know, like I say, I have friends that are 88, 89, 92. Bernie Marcus, Home Depot, is 95. Smart as hell. He's sharp as he was. I mean, he's, you know, mentally, Bernie Marcus, Home Depot, founder of Home Depot, one of the founders. I mean, I had a meeting with him a few months ago. He was 100%. I know people that built their fortunes from 80 to 90. They were always struggling, and they made a fortune from 80 to 90. A couple of people in particular. It's amazing. He's not too old. You know, his age. I think they do the age thing because I'm 4 or 5 years behind. They say this is a way of getting Trump. Let's go amok. But there's something wrong. I saw his answer today on television about whether or not he was going to run to a very nice guy named Al Roker. I mean, you can't get a softer question than that. That was a long answer. Talking about the eggs and the this and that. Look, I don't think he can. But say what you want. They didn't expect him to get it. Yeah. You know, people could say he won an election. You know, it always goes. I got the most votes of any person, any sitting president in history. I was told if I got 15 million less, I couldn't lose. They're surrounded by vicious, smart people, radical left people. But they're very smart and they're very vicious. It's not him. It's not him. He's now in Ireland. He's not going to have a news conference. When the world is exploding, I own property in Ireland. I'm not going to Ireland. The world is exploding around us. You could end up in a third world war, and this guy's going to be in Ireland and not having a news conference. He hasn't had a news conference, I guess, in months. I saw today where he hasn't. It's been.
Well, he can't. So if he doesn't run, if he's taken out by his own party, or who knows what happens, but it doesn't seem like he's capable of running again, who does run?
Well, obviously the one that they would talk about would be the vice president, Kamala. That would be the one that they talk about. But I don't think she's performed well on the big stage. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. But there are a certain group of people that will go crazy if it's not her. They're going to be very angry if it's not her. That's a problem. You have a very ambitious guy in California, but he's done a terrible job with the state. I used to get along great with him, you know, when I was president. I got along really good, Gavin.
Well, you got along with Gavin Newsom?
I did. I really did. He was always very nice to me. He said the greatest things. He would say things like he's doing a great job. Oh, he was very nice.
About you?
About me. That's why I could never hit him, because he was so nice to me. It's just laying in wait, right? But I could, you know, he was very nice to me. And relatively speaking, some of them weren't. We did a good job for the governors. But they talk about him. They talk about some others. I just don't see Biden doing it from a physical or a mental standpoint.
Yes.
I don't see it. But it's been a crazy period of time in the world of politics. But he's surrounded by people. You know, they expected Bernie to win. Now, Bernie's older than Biden, you know, whether you like him or not. He's sharp. I watched him being interviewed the other day. He's 100% sharp. He hasn't lost much, if anything, Bernie Sanders. But, you know, he's older. So it's not an age thing. I just don't see him.
So they're trying to prevent you from making it to the general election by tying you up in lawsuits, charging you with crimes. You've described the process.
The old Soviet process.
The old Soviet process. And you've described it as illegitimate. If this goes to trial and you get convicted, like how would you respond in the middle of a presidential campaign? How
Well,
would you
it's
respond?
so off. Statute of limitations are years off. It's hard to believe. You know, usually when you have something like this, the Democrats say, oh, he's terrible, guilty. The Democrats have even said, I'm innocent. I watched some of these, I think it was Andrew McCabe, the FBI guy who I fired. He came out, he said, they've got no case. They've all come out and said it. And then you've had Andrew McCarthy, you've had Jonathan Turley, Greg Jarrett, Dershowitz, all of them, everybody, like, and they're, you know, down the middle people. They see it. They say, there's no crime. There's no anything. Think of it, Tucker. I've been through 7 years of bull investigations. 7 years. They've looked at, I have a very big company, much bigger than they understand. In fact, when they finally got my taxes, they said, whoa. You know, they took them years to get the taxes. They got them. That was the last you ever heard. You never heard one thing about them. But it took them years to get them because they shouldn't be looking at my taxes. I was surprised the Supreme Court gave them the right. They shouldn't be looking at people. That's sort of another one of the tenets. You don't do that. But I didn't care that much. I just, on principle, I fought them. And they looked. I built a great company. When you do the things that I do, and you employ thousands and thousands of people over the years, just thousands, we've done a great job. And then I ran for president. People were surprised that I won, but I used to see these rallies, and I'll tell you, the rallies are bigger now. The enthusiasm is more now than I've ever seen.
So what do you think, since your poll numbers have risen consistently since they raided this place, Mar-a-Lago?
Well, before they raided.
In August.
They were going up substantially before.
Well, they
but
definitely moved after
Since
that.
then, they've really been going up.
So how do you think that your opponents will respond?
I don't know how well. We have two opponents. We have a primary opponent. We have a general election opponent.
I mean the Democratic Party using the legal system.
Well, what they're doing is they're finding, and think of this, they say 11 million pages, but whatever it is, through all of these Democrats' investigations. I had the Mueller hoax. I had impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, Ukraine, Russia. You knew the Russia. I got that whole term from you, Russia. You'd be screaming and I'd say, this guy's a comedian. But you remember that whole period of time.
Quite well.
It turned out to be a total fake. But think of this, you know, I tell this story very seldom, but because it's a sad story. So the Russia hoax was made up by crooked Hillary Clinton, Adam Schiff, the DNC, the Democrat Party. The dossier is a total fake thing. We're suing them now, as you know, on that. We're suing them a lot because, unfortunately, Bill Barr didn't have the courage to do what he should have done. He was so afraid of being impeached. So I have to do it civilly. I have to sue people. The Justice Department should have done, because these are criminals. But think of this. So you have all of these millions and millions of pages, and they get you on a non-disclosure agreement? I mean, big numbers, billions and billions of dollars, right? And they get you on a perfect non-disclosure agreement, or they get you on nothing. A friend of mine who's a big business guy said, you have to be the most honest guy in the world, because with all of those numbers that you have and those big numbers, they don't have anything. And you have to see, take a look at the people I just mentioned. Look, read what they said. There was no crime. In fact, a lot of people are saying he indicted somebody. There's no crime. That's illegal to do, you know, what he did. So I don't see it going. I mean, we'll have to see.
So, but just to bottom line it, I mean, the purpose of this is to keep you out of the presidential race.
If I weren't running, or if I had bad poll numbers, let's say.
Right.
And again, remember, the Democrats are the party of disinformation. If they want you to run, if they want to run against somebody, they're going to go the opposite. For instance, they don't want to run against. And now, I just gave you a poll. I'm 9 points up on Biden. But they're the party of disinformation. So what they say is, oh, we want to run against Trump. Now, they always do that. You know, they do that. And other people would do it, but they do it pretty much better than others.
Is there anything they could throw at you legally that would convince you to drop out of the race? If you get convicted in this case in New York,
No, I'd never
drop
drop out. No, I'd never drop. It's not my thing. I wouldn't do it.